Although it's rare, caffeine overdoses can lead to death. The American Academy of Pediatrics cites Germany and Ireland as the only two countries whose poison control centers have reported energy drink-related deaths. After screening an episode of True Blood, Feinberg answered students' questions for more than an hour, touching on subjects like how to incorporate elements from the novels to how to manage a production budget. With about 2,500 inmates here at the House of Corrections, Sheriff Cabral estimates the cost of keeping each one here at $40,000 a year. That puts the total bill for the Suffolk County House of Corrections at almost $100 million. Broadcast journalism students will have the opportunity to learn from one of Boston's most respected newsmen. And Saul's key piece of advice for his aspiring journalists? Engage brain before putting mouth in gear.
BUTV 10's Katie Callaway joins us now live with a reaction to the rulings. Katie?
Thanks, guys. Don't Ask, Don't Tell is back on the books just a few days after the military began accepting openly gay recruits. Saul will only be teaching one class next semester, but he told me that he hopes to expand his teaching portfolio somewhere down the road. From Kenmore Square to Babcock Street, there are more than 20 places on the Boston University campus where students can get coffee or energy drinks, including 4 Starbucks and 3 Dunkin' Donuts. But with so many ways to get a caffeine fix, is it possible to ingest too much?
You know, nowadays, caffeine is now infused in so many of these energy drinks that you can really have too much.
And too much caffeine can lead to an overdose. According to an article by the American Academy of Pediatrics, symptoms of too much caffeine include nervousness, irritability, insomnia, heart palpitations, paralysis, and seizures.
And that's going to be very different depending on the individual, but for the most part you would have to ingest a lot of caffeine. So on average, say, you know, a cup of coffee, 6 to 8 ounce cup of coffee is about 175 milligrams, and when we're talking about levels that are going to put you in the hospital, you're talking like 25 grams. So that's like 25 cups of coffee or 40 cups of coffee. I mean, that's a lot.
But for Santiago Gomez, it only took 5 cups.
I was studying for an AP exam my senior year. It was for a practice AP exam. And I woke up early that night, probably like around 3 a.m. in the morning to keep studying. I prepared about, let's say about 5 cups of really, really strong Colombian coffee. Like to the point where the cup would be couple feet away from me and you can smell the caffeine.
Gomez continued to study and took the exam in the morning. He says he felt fine until a few hours later.
When things started to go wrong was when I had a pop quiz in my band class, pop playing quiz, and I just couldn't get my notes out. I couldn't play well, and I knew something was wrong because I'm a good musician, so something's really wrong right now, and started having really hard heavy heart palpitations.
His mother picked him up and took him to the hospital, where doctors monitored his vitals to make sure he wouldn't have a heart attack. Gomez says his decision to go to the hospital stemmed from his family history of heart conditions. Although it's rare, caffeine overdoses can lead to death. The American Academy of Pediatrics cites Germany and Ireland as the only two countries whose poison control centers have reported energy drink-related deaths. U.S. poison control centers haven't tracked energy drink-related incidents, though, because, quote, exposures were coded as caffeine or multi-substance exposures and were combined with other caffeine sources, end quote.
These energy drinks can have 2 and 3 cups of equivalent of cups of coffee in their caffeine content. And also they often are consumed much more quickly than coffee because coffee is hot. So you can quickly overconsume these and start getting some of these symptoms.
But experts say there are much safer and healthier ways to get energy than to consume caffeinated beverages.
You get your energy from food, and you should get it from whole foods, whole grains and fruits and vegetables.
The thing that's really going to give you the most energy is an effective amount of sleep, which for college students is actually 9 or so hours.
Gomez says he no longer drinks coffee to study all night, and also says he avoids energy drinks. For BUTV 10, I'm Katie Callaway. Boston University students get a sneak peek into the world of vampires, supernaturals, and Sookie Stackhouse. True Blood, of course. Com Cinematheque welcomes Greg Feinberg, the HBO show's executive producer, for a show and tell about how an episode of television evolves.
When Greg came here, we sat down and we said, I said to him, what can we do that's special, that we're not going to just watch, an episode of the show? I said, I want to do something where you can really see the process of how it happens behind the scenes, from a producer's point of view.
And I said, well, there's one episode in particular, the one we're going to show tonight, 210. The final cut is different than the final shooting draft. We made, it was the hardest edit we've ever had to do.
Feinberg said this episode was so difficult because it was at a crucial point in the season. He hoped students would be interested in hearing how it changed, and judging from the discussion afterward, they certainly were.
It's amazing to see how much forethought goes into this type of production and type of film, much more so than a normal motion picture, which only takes 2 hours at most of actual film time.
Schneider says series work is unique and an incredible discipline, and he wanted students to get a deeper understanding of what goes into television production. But Feinberg says he just wanted students to get whatever they came for out of the presentation.
Everybody here hopefully has a career in mind and an idea of what they want to do, and whether you're a director, an editor, want to be a cameraman, producer, there'll be different things in this for everybody in a way.
After screening an episode of True Blood, Feinberg answered students' questions for more than an hour, touching on subjects like how to incorporate elements from the novels to how to manage a production budget. Com Cinema Tech hopes to bring in more A-list writers and producers in the future, with Mad Men on the top of their list. For BUTV 10, I'm Katie Callaway. A recent study says that in a single day, up to 54% of Boston's youth see an alcohol ad. There's now a bill on the books that would ban these ads in hopes of getting the ball rolling and reducing underage consumption.
It's not a cure-all for underage drinking, but it's a little piece of the puzzle that we need to look at to say, how can we do a better job of protecting our children?
Walsh says there are studies that link exposure to ads for alcohol with earlier underage drinking. The author of one of those studies surveyed the MBTA and found that underage youth see alcohol ads 18,000 times a day.
This amounts to a total exposure that's equivalent to 5 Super Bowl ads.
According to the MBTA's court-approved advertising guidelines, alcohol ads must contain a warning statement that takes up at least 3% of the space.
So we're in strict compliance with the government regulations.
Not taking compliance into account, Boston residents are split on the appropriateness of the alcohol ads.
I think any ad that advocates alcohol has an effect on youth. I'm not sure if it has a huge effect. It is a college campus. It's probably going to happen, whether there are ads for it or not.
But Walsh wants to make sure there aren't ads anywhere in Massachusetts. He says there isn't much standing in the way of that goal.
One of the arguments against it is that people saying we'll lose revenue. We won't lose revenue.
That's not the case, according to Pesaturo. He says the MBTA marketing department generates over $2 million in alcohol advertising revenue alone.
They tell us it would be very difficult to make up that $2 million.
Walsh and Siegel make it pretty clear, though, that they think alcohol ads influence teens.
There's a large body of scientific evidence showing that kids who are more heavily exposed to alcohol ads are more likely to end up drinking.
Walsh admits that there will probably always be underage drinking. However,
if it didn't work, they wouldn't be all over Kenmore Square.
Representative Walsh says that at this point he thinks the bill has a 50% chance of passing. If it doesn't pass by July 31st, he plans on refiling it for the next legislative term. For BU10 News, I'm Katie Callaway. Welcome to BUTV 10's One-on-One. We're pleased to have legendary film and television producer Greg Feinberg, the executive producer of the hit HBO series True Blood. Thank you so much for joining us, Greg.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going to start off talking about your executive producing role. So you came into True Blood in the second season. You had to know that it was already a pretty big hit.
Yes.
And you mentioned earlier that you're a little surprised by how crazy everyone is about the show. So has it exceeded your expectations? Haiti's cholera epidemic is spreading beyond its borders, with confirmed cases in the Dominican Republic and now here in the USA as well. Health workers say the disease is unlikely to spread in either country, but back in Haiti, workers are now dealing with another outbreak, an outbreak of violence. Good afternoon and welcome to BUTV News at Noon. I'm Katie Callaway. Topping the news at this hour, a water main break is still affecting businesses, commuters, and pedestrians on Boston's Newbury Street this morning. Well, hopefully November will mean more sales because the government says we took a break from shopping last month. That means stores had to discount more merchandise. Joey Galloway's tenure with the New England Patriots is over. The Pats released the veteran receiver and made several other moves before this afternoon's trade deadline. Tight end Michael Matthews was also cut. Linebackers Tully Banta-Cain and Eric Alexander were both re-signed after they were released by the team yesterday.